here to talk about Picard, Star Trek Picard. Of course, there was Star Trek The Next Generation, the very popular series that was like the second live action Star Trek series and introduced the world to Jean-Luc Picard, played by the very great Patrick Stewart, and had his whole crew with Riker and Data and all those characters, and it was a really good show. Star Trek is a sort of franchise I got into more recently, not a franchise I grew up with, but now I kind of, wish I'd given it a chance earlier. I think it's a really good show. I really like, particularly the Picard era, and so I heard that, Picard had his own show. I mean, he's already the lead character in Next Generation, but even more so in Picard. So he got his own show with Patrick Stewart in his late 70s, early 80s, starring in this action show, and that was very ambitious for him. And a lot of people, especially a lot of Star Trek fans, did not like Picard. They thought it wasn't a good continuation of the Next Generation, thought it was a bad show, and they're entitled to their opinion, and they probably know Star Trek better than I do, and if they don't like it, that's okay, they don't have to. I will say I'm a bit confused, though, because speaking personally, and again, from a bit of an outsider, because I'm not an expert at Star Trek, but just speaking for myself, I love Star Trek Picard. I thought it wasn't just a good show, I thought it was a great show. Patrick Stewart, I know, he's older, and, people say, oh, he's lost his touch. I don't agree. I mean, when you're, an 80-year-old action lead, there's certain things that he can't really do as well as other action leads, so, but when it comes to his acting, he is still that inspirational mentor, that leader character that, is the reason why I loved him so much as Professor X, and actually, I loved how inspirational he was, Professor X, so much in X-Men movies. That's actually what inspired me to check out Picard and get into Star Trek, because I just thought he was just amazing as this mentor character, this, kind of a symbol of hope. Professor X, a different type of symbol of hope than Superman, a bit more sophisticated, a bit, different subject matter and all that, but very much, and could be considered a more flawed character, but still very much this really great symbol of hope, inspirational character, and I feel that's what Picard was, and that he, played Picard even before Professor X. I feel that it makes so much sense why he got cast as Professor X, because his Picard was this already inspirational, fantastic leader, so him leading the X-Men was amazing. That was such a great choice, and in Picard he gets to come back and be that inspirational symbol of hope and just be amazing. I love him in this show. He's consistently great, his speeches, and he's just really inspirational, and seeing him, he goes through some hard times and makes some mistakes, but he works hard to still make a positive difference even in his later years. Picard does, and it's really great to see. And we have 709, and she comes back in a major role. She was from a different Star Trek series, not from the Next Generation, but this kind of brings her sort of into that, and she's really cool, and there's this new character, I think, Raffi, and they have a really good relationship. And what's really cool is Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, he actually wanted to have some gay characters in the Next Generation, because he was this very progressive guy who really was ahead of his time and wanted Star Trek to be ahead of its time, especially since it took place in the future and stuff, and so wanted to have gay characters, and the studio at the time wouldn't really let him. So I think it's great that what he wanted, that great representation, gets to be in Star Trek now, and so I don't think that's forcing an agenda. I think it's a beautiful, bringing the creator's wish to life, and it's a great thing that he wanted to do, and I'm glad that he wasn't able to do it in his lifetime, but now they're able to fulfill that wish and make it true, and I think that's beautiful. It's, both a tribute to the, LGBT community, but also a tribute to the creator, the man who gave us Star Trek, and I think that's wonderful. So I really enjoy that aspect, and, some of the newer characters, I can understand why they wouldn't necessarily live up to the original crew, or, well, the Next Generation crew. But I do enjoy them, and they do find a way to work the original cast from Next Generation into the show. Riker and the others get a really big role in the third season, and Data is actually he is actually very important in the first season, and they have some really emotional scenes with him, and he's great. Brent Spiner's also like an amazing actor, still doing great stuff, and Jonathan Frakes really good as Riker, and just seeing the original cast, and they really still got it, and they're really great. And Q comes back. John Delancey, Discord from My Little Pony, comes back, and what they do with him in season 2 is amazing, and I love it. And Q's last scene in season 2 is one of the best season finale scenes I've ever seen. Just with, because he caused Picard so much trouble, and seems like Q is going away for good, and Picard decides that, he's not going to be like, oh, I defeated you, enemy, heroes win the day. He actually comforts Q in that moment, and, despite everything he did, Picard still cared about him, and in this world where we're united against each other, and you do something bad, then somebody does something bad, somebody did something bad, then we should do something bad against them, and all that, just fighting that off and winning the day just by being selfless and good despite everything that happens. That's just so inspirational and wonderful, and I love that Picard did that. It was really touching and wonderful, and I think Picard, the show, is a really moving show, and at times it does feel like a masterpiece. And he said, some of the new characters, they might have a few not as interesting moments. It could be an episode that's, a few episodes here or there aren't exciting as others. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but I think it really is a beautiful show, and I'm so glad that Patrick Stewart came back and made this whole show and starred in this show. I mean, his late age, that he was able to do all this is amazing, and he did a fantastic job. And the third season, where they bring a lot of the cast back, and it's great stuff, and they bring the music back, and it's a really touching thing, because the last movie they starred together in wasn't considered very good, so Patrick Stewart wanted to give it, the Next Generation era, a more grand finale, and I think he and the crew absolutely pulled that off, and they did a fabulous job. And I think Picard is a beautiful show, and I really do highly recommend it.